If you go for a job, say in a restaurant or a cafe, should you expect to work unpaid as part of the interview process? Some employers say unpaid work trials are needed to get the measure of a person's ability, but others believe they amount to unscrupulous exploitation. That's the view of Scottish student Ellen Reynolds, who's launched a petition calling on MPs to debate a proposal to ban all such practices. She joined us along with the restaurant owner Malcolm Duck and the employment lawyer David Martin. So Ellen, what was your experience?
So for me, I was asked to do a unpaid trial at a restaurant. I worked there for about 5 hours. Just as a standard waitress, I did everything you'd expect, running up and down the stairs with foods and drinks, took payments, standard restaurant work, and I had to buy a uniform for it. But then I just didn't hear back from them. I didn't get paid. That was my whole experience, 5 hours free work.
And that's fundamentally unfair, you believe?
Yeah, I do.
And Malcolm, what do you make of that?
Exploitation in any shape or form is wrong. And I think the precept is important. Trial shift or free labour. A trial shift should not be a free shift. It should be a shortish period of time, couple of maximum kind of 3 hours, to see how the person performs in the workplace. It's an extension of the interview. We have at times taken someone straight on for a week and then you pay them. But we need to see somebody in the workplace. Whether they have uniform or not is a different kind of point. We would not expect someone to buy their uniform to come in for trial shift. That said, somebody in the hospitality industry full-time would probably have that. So I think the fundamental point is exploitation is wrong, but the trial on a shift, let's not call it a trial shift, a trial on a shift is to show both ways whether the person and the establishment are right for each other. And many employees value that as well, but exploitation is wrong.
Can you accept what Malcolm's saying there, Elle?
I'm not sure many employees would accept that. I'm not sure employees are looking to work for free, especially given the current climate. That's not something people want to do, especially not the financially vulnerable and the young, who are the people that are put up for these unpaid trials, because that's what it is. It's a trial of work and it's unpaid.
David, what's the legal position to all of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the very fact we're having this discussion is indicative of the fact that this is a legal grey area. It is beyond doubt that where somebody is at work, they must be paid national minimum wage, and I think that's absolutely clear. There's no debate about that. But the question is a trial shift or a trial period, is that work or is it not work? And at the moment, we don't have any clear guidance from the courts on that, mainly because these cases never come before the courts because they're usually a dispute over £20-30. My own view, looking at the sorts of things you might want to analyse if these cases came to a hearing, I think you'd want to say, was it, as you said, Malcolm, a short period of time? Was there some sort of assessment going on? Was the person being judged, coached, trained, and to some extent some genuine interview or assessment taking place, or was this just a phone call on a busy Saturday night before Christmas because somebody hadn't turned up for their shift? And I think very often it's that latter situation which is the difficulty.
You consider it almost like an interview, Malcolm?
I don't consider it an interview. It must be part of the interview. Anything else is exploitation. And that's for me, I don't have a problem with this, because exploitation is exploitation. If you're covering your shifts with unpaid workers, that is exploitation. We can interview a lot, we can talk to people, we can find out what they can and can't do, but until they're on the floor, we can't really see what they can and can't do. We can't see how they interact with the staff and the staff interact with them. That two-way process is very important. In the kitchen especially, it's extremely important because the dynamic and the bond between the people working in that hot, busy environment, exceptionally important. Skill levels can be there, but maybe the team bond isn't there. But again, that would not be for a whole evening. We tend not to do trial shifts in housekeeping because it's a reasonably simple job where you can train. So that's you don't have the contact with the customer. I think that contact with the customer is what really leads on to being a trial shift. The teachers do it. I mean, teachers take a day off work and they go and do a day's interview and they have to teach a period and they're not paid for it. So I think it's how it's used. And UK hospitality certainly would take a very strong stance. I think that any exploitation is wrong, and people doing what's happened to this experience is it's just not acceptable.
Okay, and let me put that to Ellen. So, can you see the what Malcolm's getting at there? That you have to be under the pressure of dealing with customers in the kitchen, all of that, and that can't be done just by talking to you.
I understand that, but at the same time, personally, I've had other jobs where I've been paid for a trial shift, so I know it's possible. Furthermore, I have experience. If you're going to interview someone and you know they have experience, they'll give you a number you can call. You can talk to previous management where they can prove that they've had experience with customers. Also, I feel like in an interview you should be able to tell how people can get on with other people, because that's what an interview does, that's what it's for. Also, building on that, it's not just hospitality that uses free trial shifts. It's anywhere from hotels to construction work. It's a massive issue throughout the UK.
And just very briefly, the point, David was suggesting that most of these cases, Malcolm, are only 20, 30, 40 pounds. Is it really too much to expect somebody to be paid that?
Well, to pay that, you have to put them on the payroll unless you take the money out the till, which is stealing from the government. So there's a whole complication that goes on down that road. Look, I think it comes back to it. It's part of the interview, accepted or not. And anything else is exploitation. I've heard, I think, the Twitter thing earlier, somebody worked for a week and they weren't paid. That's illegal. There are laws there to do that.
Okay, well, let me put that to David. Is the law there to do that? And the specific thing Ellen's talking about, can legislation be brought in to deal with that?
Well, I think it can. I mean, there's been attempts by Stuart MacDonald, I think, a couple of years ago to bring this in. And I think,
the MSP.
Yeah, the MSP. And I think that would broadly be welcomed. And I think it'd be welcomed because, as I said, we do have this dearth of case law. Normally, when it comes to the question of what is work and what isn't work, for example, the Supreme Court at the moment are looking at people who do overnight shifts working in care homes, for example. Are they at work when they're sleeping, or are they not at work? And that will be answered by the courts, and the government doesn't need to step in and give us guidance. That's why I think it's important, the work that Ellen's doing, because I think government really needs to give us guidance, that balance between when is something a part of a recruitment process and when is it the exploitation that Malcolm's quite rightly poured scorn upon. That needs to be clarified for everybody's sake.
Stuart MacDonald, obviously an MP, not an MSP, my error there. You're petitioning, Ellen, the House of Commons for a debate on this.
Yeah, so I know Stuart brought in a private member's bill, but they have a low success rate. And my kind of idea, whether it's far-fetched or not, is that if people know that this is happening and people sign the petition, then Parliament will see that it's an issue for the citizens of the UK. That it's something we agree that we need change on, and that they'll consider it further, and not just something an MP's brought before for his own political gain.
And Malcolm, would legislation cause a problem for your industry?
None of it's the right legislation. I think a lot of it's, and I've spoken to most of my staff today about this very fact, and their feeling is that trial shifts are good in that they can see how people work, and as it's part of the interview process. But they've all had experience where they've had to work on trial shifts or 2 or 3, and it's been abused. I would hope that that's the minority, but maybe the kind of sector I work in, people I work with, and my kind of peers are not that way inclined. So, what she's experienced is wrong, point blank, and I'm always happy to help to try and stamp that kind of thing out. But I would be very, very, very sad to see the trial, the properly used trial shift not being available to the employee and the employer. It's a two-way process. My staff are my main customers. Secondary customers are the customers that come in and they look after it. So if my staff aren't happy, then I'm not going to be able to do a job for my customers. So that bond between staff and management is extremely important. And doing this kind of thing just drives a wedge down the middle of it. And
a very brief response to that, Ellen.
I'm not saying you can't have a trial shift. If you feel like a trial shift is something you need, pay for it. It's quite simple. Pay minimum wage.
Okay, and there we shall leave it. Thank you all for joining us on Scotland Tonight. Thank you.